You are probably holding one right now. Genuinely, globally, almost universally, we all have one. And if you are sitting in a room somewhere watching this, it's highly likely that you will plug it in and charge it right next to your bed tonight. Maybe you even slip it under your pillow. But here's something that nobody tells you. Under the right conditions, that charger is making things worse. Not a little worse, potentially fatally worse. Leaving your phone charging in your bed when you fall asleep doesn't just degrade the battery. Under the blanket, it traps thermal energy. It speeds up a chemical process, and that will kill you. And right now, in bedrooms all over the world, those conditions are created every single night. This is the story of thermal runaway, a chemical reaction most people have never heard of. The threshold a lithium-ion battery cannot negotiate with, and a daily hazard that sits closer to your face than almost anything else in your life. But to understand why, you first need to understand what your phone is actually doing when it's plugged into the wall. And to understand why a bed can kill you, you first need to understand how your phone cools itself. Because most people think phones only get hot when they are broken or old. They don't. Not exactly. Heat is the inevitable tax of electricity. When power flows from your wall outlet into the phone, the battery stores that energy, but some of that energy is lost as heat. Under normal conditions, your phone handles this by passively dissipating that heat into the surrounding air. There are no fans inside your phone. It relies entirely on the air around it to carry that thermal energy away. Without air circulation, dissipation is zero. It does nothing. This is why charging your phone on a wooden table feels completely fine, while charging it in bed is incredibly dangerous. On a hard, flat surface, the air circulates freely around the chassis, whisking away the heat. On a soft bed, on the other hand, the mattress and blankets act like a physical thermal insulator, trapping the heat and keeping it pressed against the battery. Your phone produces heat constantly while charging, just from the physics of pushing electricity. At normal charging speeds, it's generating roughly 5 to 15 watts of heat. Fast charge it, and that number climbs fast. Fast charging can push 30, 45, or even 100 watts of power, and all of that heat has to go somewhere. Dissipation is the primary exit route, and when that exit route closes, something has to give. And scientists and engineers found a way to measure exactly when that system starts to fail. It is called the thermal runaway threshold. Most people have never even heard of it. Battery scientists have been measuring this problem for decades using something called an adiabatic calorimeter. Inside a lithium-ion battery, lithium ions flow through a liquid electrolyte. When things are cool, the chemical reactions are stable and predictable. The battery functions perfectly. On a flat desk, the battery temperature remains much lower than its critical threshold because the water-like electrolyte remains stable and the air cools the chassis. Under a blanket or pillow, that gap closes. The internal battery temperature creeps toward the critical threshold, and if the air around the phone is fully insulated, there's no heat dissipation at all. The internal battery temperature and the localized environment temperature begin to feed off each other.
And this number, the internal battery temperature, is arguably one of the most important safety metrics that most people have never even considered, because it doesn't just tell you how hot the phone is, it tells you how close the chemistry inside is to breaking down. It tells you whether your phone's passive cooling system can function or not. And there is a specific temperature beyond which the chemistry simply cannot cope. So what is that number, and what does it actually mean for your phone? 60 degrees Celsius to 80 degrees Celsius, that is the threshold. Above it, the chemistry stops working in your favor. A standard lithium-ion battery operates safely under 45 degrees Celsius while charging. At temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius, the protective layers within the battery begin to decompose. At 80 degrees Celsius, the electrolyte itself begins to break down, releasing flammable gases like carbon monoxide and methane. Your battery keeps generating heat as it draws power from the charger, but there is nowhere for the heat or the gas to go. Internal temperatures begin to rise, and unlike a normal warming during charging, where the phone might safely pause the process, this rise is uncontrolled. The heat triggers more chemical reactions, which generate more heat, which triggers even faster reactions. Thermal runaway, gas venting, explosion, and eventually a devastating fire. And this is where the pillow comes in. At normal conditions, the phone's metallic and glass body helps by radiating heat into the air. That is the whole design of passive cooling. But when you place your phone under your pillow, the pillow stops helping and starts doing something else. It is now acting as a heavy-duty insulator, trapping the heat. The heat your phone generates cannot escape. It is reflected back into the phone. The pillow is now a thermal blanket, cooking your device. Add a fast charger to that, or a worn-out third-party cable, and you have a worst-case scenario. Passive cooling is already failing. The physical barrier cannot be bypassed, and the constant flow of electricity increases the rate at which the battery heats up. Under those conditions, your phone's software safety protocols, which usually shut down the phone when it gets too hot, cannot save you. The physical heat is building up faster than the software can react, accelerating the chemical process that will ignite it. This is not a theoretical concern. This is documented. Fire departments around the world regularly report house fires, severe burns, and fatalities caused by charging phones left on beds or under pillows. Now here's the part that should genuinely alarm you. Many people believe that modern smartphones are smart enough to prevent this from ever happening. They think built-in thermal shutoffs make explosions a relic of the past. They're wrong. Analysis of battery fire incidents shows that when a charging phone is placed under a pillow, the temperature can climb from room temperature to the thermal runaway threshold of 80 degrees Celsius in less than an hour. Once that threshold is crossed, the battery enters a state where thermal runaway occurs in milliseconds. The surface temperature of the exploding battery can spike to over 400 degrees Celsius, hotter than a kitchen oven. In 2019, a tragic and widely documented case in Kazakhstan saw a 14-year-old schoolgirl die in her sleep because her phone, plugged into the wall, exploded on her pillow. It happened quietly, right next to her head. And these events happen more frequently than anyone predicts, especially as fast chargers become more powerful and third-party replacement batteries become cheaper. But here's the catch. 80 degrees Celsius is actually the extreme optimistic number for high-quality, brand-new batteries. Real life isn't that. Data shows that for most devices, accounting for older batteries, physical drops, bent charging pins, or cheap, uncertified replacement chargers, dangerous thermal instability begins at temperatures closer to 50 degrees Celsius. For an aging battery that has gone through hundreds of charge cycles, its internal resistance is much higher, meaning it generates far more heat to charge. So the threshold where it starts losing the battle against heat arrives much sooner. This matters enormously when you look at which devices are at risk. It is not brand new flagship phones using original, expensive chargers in air-conditioned testing labs. It is older phones with degraded batteries. It is cheap knockoff charging bricks and frayed cables. It is teenagers' rooms, college dorms, and bedrooms where phones are buried under heavy winter blankets, which is exactly how countless mattress fires are ignited every single year. So, back to the bed. The reason that charging your phone under a pillow can kill you isn't because phones or chargers are inherently dangerous. It's because the conditions in which their cooling systems stop working and start harming us are conditions we create in our beds every single night. Conditions that are completely normal to us and conditions that most people have no framework for understanding because almost nobody talks about passive thermal dissipation. We talk about battery life, we talk about fast charging, we talk about screen on time, but the actual physical limit, the thermal environment that tells you whether your phone's battery can safely breathe, rarely makes the news. 60 degrees, that's the wall. Below it, the phone's materials can cope. Above it, no amount of smart software, no original charger, nothing changes the outcome. The physics have closed the door. And the honest and uncomfortable truth is this: many of us are inviting that danger right into our beds, inches from our faces every single night, with no way to stop a chemical fire once it begins. Next time you go to bed and your phone is low on battery and you reach for that charger, now you know what it can and cannot do, and why sometimes the most convenient place to leave your phone is the one place that makes it deadly.